Hello, friends. It's time for Talk Fort Dodge, the show that uncovers the stories behind the houses and the heart of our community. I'm Jeremiahjcondon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and today we are here with Matt Cosgrove with Webster County Conservation. But before we talk to him, let's do a quick market update.
Market update. We want the interest rates to drop.
Yes,
that would
we
be
do.
The thing. That would be the great thing to happen. The world would explode if it did.
I had a closing this morning at 6.75, and I got a pre-approval this morning for 6.25. So I am seeing a little bit of up and down a little bit.
6.25 is pretty awesome.
Right now it is. Yeah.
Yep.
So they're pretty excited.
I pulled up the numbers from 2020 and 2021. In 2020, the average house sale in Fort Dodge was $127,000. And over that 1 year, it jumped to $136,000.
Okay.
And we keep talking. Today, it's $168,000.
Yeah, I mean,
Isn't that crazy? Just 4 years?
It's been big. Normally, and we had a discussion today that real estate in general raises 4% a year over year for the last 100 and whatever years. 4% is pretty much the average that it goes up. COVID and the last few years have really kind of messed with that. But
2020 and 2021 were the two huge years.
Yep.
I should have pulled up 2019.
You should have, so we could compare. We might next week. But no, I think we're getting back to that 4%. I don't think values are going down. And we talk about home values going up, and we talk about the interest rate because it is a good time to buy a house. You know, marry the house, date the rate is what we talked about this morning. Because, you know, if you see the house and get it, because it is going to go up in value.
People that say they're going to wait 2 years and wait for the rate to come down, what happens is the price went up,
right?
8%. If it went up 8%, a $200,000 house is now worth $216,000. If you would have bought it for $200,000, did the rate matter?
Right. I have one client I'm working with, they bought a house when they started looking at be at 4%. No. So you never know. I mean, it might be at 6. It might go back up to 8 or 9. You don't know. You might be getting a low rate. You can always refinance in a couple of years.
And I would bet a lot of money that it's never going to drop under 4 again.
I'm not going to bet anything.
All right. Featured house. 759 Elizabeth Avenue, 1,570 square foot. Todd, you want to tell us a little bit about it?
This house is immaculate. It's a little dated in places, I have to be honest, but it is one of the cleanest houses I've ever been in. It's one of those houses where the person that's going to move in there is trying to downsize. It's still a big house. There's still a lot of room, but it's 2 bedrooms. It's got an ensuite, so you have your own bathroom, but it's got a lot of space to do things.
2 living areas in the main area. There's also a living room in the basement.
Huge family. You could have 3 pool tables in the basement if you're into that. It's big.
Yeah.
It's I love the house. And the Elizabeth Avenue is so cool. I mean, there's a $500,000 house next door and a $700,000 house next to that and $1 million house around the corner. So it's just kind of a neat place to be. And you're kind of in that old school neighborhood.
It's one of those houses that's so well taken care of. Like you want your buyer to buy a house like that because you just know there's nothing wrong with it.
Right. You move in, the furnace it's an old furnace, but it is in great shape. Bianchi goes in every year and says, this thing's never going to quit. Just keep this furnace. Yep. When it does, we'll put a new one in. But this one just buzzes
because
and buzzes
it's maintained and we check on it every year.
Yeah. So the guy's wife, Steve's wife, actually jokes that he doesn't know how to run a hammer. So everything has been fixed professionally. So it is a really cool house. So now that we're done with that, Mr. Cosgrove, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Yes.
You ever done anything like this before?
Yes, I have done. I did one conservation-related one.
Oh, cool.
A friend of mine, he's a director down in Des Moines County, so that was my first experience with the podcast. So
this one's going to be much better and much more.
And today we're going to talk about conservation.
Perfect. That's good.
So it'll be the same thing.
So as conservation, that's not when you think of conservation, my first thought is like farmland conservation, and is that what you do, or is it more in the recreation side? Because that's where I know you from.
So it's a good blend, and I'd say lately we've been doing a lot of recreation. So we try to bring people into the natural resources through recreation. So, you get them experience, you teach them how to kayak, that sort of thing, and as they do that, they learn to enjoy nature and then, take care of nature. So the plan is, use the gateway drug of recreation to get people involved in, conservation too. So, I mean, Iowa, obviously, there's a lot of conservation, land use, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of been ingrained in the history of folks here throughout the ages. So it's kind of an interesting mix. County conservation is pretty broad in conservation and recreation and dabbles in a lot of those areas. So
So your job's really fun.
Yeah, it is. It's different every day.
Sounds like you get to play every day.
Yes, we do. So yeah, we tell, we do a lot of high school kids, looking to do job shadowing and stuff like that. And it's always, well, what's great about your job? Well, it's different every day. And what I planned on doing most days usually changes by about 8:15. So
Yeah. I didn't know I was going to do this, but I'm going to do this.
yeah.
What is your most recent thing that you've been working on?
Well, we just opened the River's Edge Discovery Center.
Okay.
So that has been a huge project. We've been talking about it for 30 years. I've worked for the Conservation Board for 28 years. And we've been having those conversations in concept for that many years.
That's a lot of talking for a long time.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, yeah, that's been super exciting. We've got trail projects going on. The supervisors have provided a $11 million quality of life bond that involved the River's Edge Discovery Center, the trail to Badger, a trail in Dayton, a trail in Gowrie. So, we're just working our way through those projects in addition.
When can I ride my bike to the winery?
It shouldn't be too much longer. If it wouldn't be raining so much this year, we'd be done with that, I think, by now. But yeah, they poured the first mile of that project, and I think they poured a mile out of Badger. So,
all right, where does that connect to the trails right now?
So it will connect on 170th. The city's working on a water quality project on Soldier Creek. So you see a bunch of construction south of 170th where the trail is actually going in.
Yep.
As part of that project, they're doing a trail extension up there too. So, it used to kind of dump you out there on the highway on the west side of the bridge. Now that trail is going to be relocated to the east side of the bridge. So it'll align right with where the new trail heading to Badger is. So I know they're doing some work this fall. We had a trail meeting this morning, and they're hoping to get a lot of that work wrapped up this fall. So
that'll be fun.
I love the trails.
I do too. I have an e-bike because I'm a little lazy.
Nice.
And
he's old.
And I'm old.
I keep putting it off, but it won't be long probably.
It was the only way I was going to get my wife on a bike also. But no, we have so much fun, and we have how many miles of trails are there?
Well, between the city and county system, it's called the Prairie Rivers Trail System, and we have 30 plus. I think we're probably in that 35 range right now.
Is there a way you can access the map to see where it goes? Because I'm always trying to look and see, what direction we want to go or where we can end up.
Yeah, so the city and county websites both have links with the trail maps on them, so that's a good place. We have the main kiosks that are located, at Kennedy and at Rosedale Rapids and a lot of the key places where people start. So you can check out the map there, take a picture on your phone so you have it with you. Mm-hmm. We're actually working on updating a lot of those because those were done, I think, probably 10 years ago now.
Oh, and it's not even close.
So yeah, we've added some trail since then. So we're in the process of hopefully this fall, this winter probably, working on updating those maps. And then we'll also hopefully be getting some pocket maps so that we can have those available for people to take with them as well.
Are there any apps on your phone? Because of course I have an e-bike, so it's got a phone holder that it'd be really nice to just, okay, this is the trail.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, there's all trails and those kind of things. I'm not real sure how accurate those are right now because again, it's all people uploading that information. So
well, you're not even riding your bike anyway. You just
I have
push
to
a
pedal.
button
I
and
have
you
the
go.
hybrid.
So why don't you just hop on the trails and see where they take you?
There you go. No, mine you have to pedal. I don't have the button.
We did that a couple weeks ago, and all my kids are on bikes now. My youngest is still kind of scared, so I pull him. But it was a lot of fun. We went all the way to Loomis Park. I live over by Cooper School.
Nice.
And it was cool. And I think it's so cool. You can get places faster on the bike to some locations. From Cooper School, you can get down to Snell Crawford Park in just a minute.
Right.
By going down that trail now and hop on that gravel, you're there.
Yeah.
That's not even a long bike ride.
Yeah, and it's, we've been working on, I became the director in 2004. And at that time, Webster County Development was working on a project, and they were looking at things that businesses in the community wanted. Trails was one of the main things when they talked about quality of life, because at that point we really had the Soldier Creek Nature Trail. That was kind of the backbone of our system, but really that was about it. Finney Park Trail, and then there wasn't much else. Everything else was kind of either granular or disconnected or that sort of thing. So, the city county have worked over the last 20 years to really put together a connected and almost loop around the entire community. Mm-hmm. So, and it's been a big push. We did a trail master plan, and that really helped. We had people that out of that early Webster County development plan, they had created the Trails Advisory Board, which still works today. We met this morning. Every month we meet. Randy Coleman has chaired that, I think, since it started in 2004. So, but I mean, that committee was people, bankers and those sort of things that were saying we need to do these things. And they were going to city council and they were going to the supervisors and saying, this isn't Matt Cosgrove's good idea of the week. It's we need these things because we're trying to keep our families here. We're trying to recruit employees here and that sort of thing. So I think that's been kind of the driving force behind the expansion.
I find it huge for recruiting. when we have new people coming to town, I show them trails, and it's like for biking, running, walking, and just to get to places differently. You know, like we went out to the aquatic center for the pool party last week, and we're like, let's ride the bikes.
Nice.
You know, and it's fun.
Yeah, we've been hearing that a lot. And people, we've talked to some businesses, like they've recruited employees here because they like the OHV park. They like to ride, and they'll come here. They just move here because we have an OHV park. So there's been a handful of those stories that we've heard about. People have relocated here just because of a specific attraction.
So let's switch topics and go straight to that, because
right,
that is cool. You know, when I did the Fort Dodge leadership class, that was the first time I was ever out there and actually got on a trail. And I was with Gavin Faith, and we went to the back of I don't know if you know, but we went to the very back of the crew. And when we went, he just kept going really fast. And then came back.
He'd get some space in.
Yeah. He's like, we're going to be in the back so we can like go do fun stuff.
Nice. You had a good guide.
Yeah. And it was crazy. And I did not realize how big it was.
Yeah, we get that comment all the time, and I couldn't either when we went out there for the first time. You would never know you're on the city limits of Fort Dodge when you get back there, and it's a great area. It's been an amazing experience. Something, we weren't trained in motorized recreation, so when you talk about conservation, we're the only conservation board of the 99 that are involved in that type of motorized recreation. So we've had a lot of others reach out, but land use, like a lot of them end up in these mined areas and that sort of thing, and not everybody has those in their backyard. So we've been very fortunate to be able to work together. But that project has been, $10+ million, and you're talking state DNR, you're talking the county, the city of Fort Dodge, the Webster County Wheelers originally were behind that, Larry Lighting, and a lot of the folks like that really kind of got that ball rolling early on. So
there was, and even to go even bigger than that, there was actually legislation behind that changed how the mills, whatever, could donate the land.
Right.
Can you explain? I mean, that was just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And Denny Plotz is a friend, and he used to talk about this all the time.
Yeah, so it was pretty unique. Helen Miller and Dave Jepkes, Daryl Beal, they were all involved in a couple different pieces of legislation, but it was really related to the liability that these companies still had because the land had been mined. So they had to go in and take some specific liability language and make it so if places, gypsum companies created this opportunity, that they would be exempt from the liability. So it was a very minor change, but they still had to go in and change some liability law to make it happen.
I just think it's so cool that we didn't just involve the community. And like you said, this is the only one in the state. We actually went to the legislature and says, hey, in order for us to do this, we need you to change this, and took that bigger picture and says, okay, so legislators are working on it. We're working on it locally. We're working on private funds. We're working on public funds. And it was such a big deal.
Yeah, and still continues to be. There are 6 now across the state of Iowa, OHV parks. In Webster County and Gypsum City is the biggest of all of them. But
how big is it? Like
800 acres right now. Yeah. So it's been, I think in 2000, I think we got involved around 2010, and then we were around 200 acres, and then we've been able to, with the help of all those partners, been able to add those additional 600 acres. And then the campground, that's been extremely popular. So Kennedy Park, we've had that campground around there since the 70s. That was usually about 80% of resident people, and I'd say Gypsum City's probably almost exactly the opposite. It's probably 80% non-residents that are staying there.
I thought about staying out there just for fun.
Yeah, we get we do have a lot of locals that stay there, but we do have a lot of people coming out of the Omaha area, out of the Twin Cities area, and that sort of thing.
So I have a selfish question.
Yeah.
When can you build something for my Wrangler to go on?
We get that question a lot. When can I bring my Jeep in there?
It would be so, and it's so popular. We'll get a badge that says Fort Dodge. You can put on the side of your Jeep, and people will drive from all over the country just to get the badge.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I was going to drive to Southern Missouri, has one, and we're going to go camping down there next summer just so I can take the Jeep through some of those trails and put a badge on the side that it went through them.
Nice. So, I think there's one up in southern Minnesota as well. So those are, I think, our 2 closest, that Missouri one and one in Minnesota. But
there's a whole app and the whole following, and it's a whole pride thing. So
yeah, we've had those conversations, and it is one of those things. Shooting range is another thing, that we've had some conversations about. Those are a couple things when we did our recreation master plan. Those were a couple gaps that we definitely did look at. And there is still gypsum mined out, mined property that needs to be mined out. So as we move forward, we hope to continue those partnerships with our local gypsum companies and maybe be able to use some of those for some of those other opportunities too.
And this is for everybody else, but how do I get involved so I can point to everybody and say, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So is there something I need to volunteer for to?
Well, sure, yeah, we'd take you as a volunteer for sure.
Go clean up the ditch.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, we talked about Larry Lighting and those folks that started the OHV Park originally. That is how it got started, is you had local people talking about a need.
Yep.
So whether it's a local club or just a local group that starts those conversations, and then, hey, one meeting leads to another meeting, and another meeting leads to another meeting, and then you're changing legislation, and next thing you know, you've got that thing in the works.
I'll be on. I'll start going to supervisor meetings every Tuesday and ask when the Jeep trails are going to be
Right.
here.
Public comment period every week.
Every week.
Yeah.
When do we get a Jeep trail? When do we get a Jeep trail?
Well, another cool thing about the ATV park is like different skill sets can go. Like
Right.
young, old, me,
Older.
someone, like professional, old.
Right.
You know, that's kind of cool.
It is, yeah, and you know, again, there's 6 of them. They're all unique, and some of them maybe be a little more challenging. That's probably one of the comments we get the most, especially from the motorcycle riders, is it's not challenging enough because you know Fort Dodge has got some excellent riders here and has a great history.
Speaking
in
of Gavin
motocross.
Fave.
Yeah, exactly, Supercross and motocross and that sort of thing. So this community has cut its teeth on that. So
Yeah.
that's probably one of the drawbacks is we can't provide that level of expert experience for the general public. Otherwise, we'd have a lot of accidents and a lot of issues out there. So it is kind of for the general rider, but it does have some opportunity, you know, from the kids track to the skills development course, you know, easy trails and then getting more difficult. So you can kind of work your way up.
Mm-hmm.
And now more trails. Not that we're done with this, but there's more water trails. I've never kayaked. My wife will not get in a kayak. If that boat doesn't hold 3,000 people, she's not getting on it. Tell us about the water trails, because I see them whenever I drive. You know, you see water trail here. And
Yeah, so water trails have been growing like crazy. And I think it's almost like 2009 is when we did the original dedication of the Des Moines River through Webster County. And that was part of a project with Boone County and Hamilton counties to do a larger expansion of the water trail program. But that was like 46 miles there. And then Lizard Creek came on a few years after that. And that's been extremely popular, again, from people from outside the area coming here for that experience. So, you know, we do have people coming to use our water trails here. Now, this year was obviously interesting. And the last 3 years have been interesting because it was so dry. Like Lizard was pretty hard to use for the last 3 years.
And now it's pretty hard to use because it's full.
Yeah, well, now it's actually back down again.
Did it come back down?
And that's the thing about lizards. It goes up quick and it goes down quick. So the Des Moines is actually about perfect right now too. But we've had, you know, some damage to some of the water trail access sites just because of the high water.
I've seen that.
We just got them all opened up. I think yesterday we got the last one opened back up.
Some of them were pretty bad too. I mean, they were way underwater.
Yeah, Becker Wildlife Area there right off of 170th had a lot of debris and washed out all of our parking lot and all that kind of stuff. So the staff just got that one kind of put back together yesterday.
Good enough you can get out there and use it.
Yeah.
So kayaks, canoes, does anybody put anything else on there, or is that pretty much it?
I'd say that's most of it. And, you know, you're seeing more canoes you're seeing a lot of kayaks. I mean, you can't drive around town without seeing them in the back of people's pickups, on the top of their cars. You know, you went during COVID, you couldn't even buy one. They were just...
You couldn't find them anywhere.
They were unloading them off the semi and selling them before they even got them into the stores. So kayaks are everywhere now. So we're seeing them, you know, constantly on Badger Lake. And then seeing the kayaks are awesome on like Lizard because it's a really small, narrow creek. You got to turn more. So you got to be more of a skilled paddler, I would say, than just on the Des Moines where you can float.
Yeah. More of a float guy if I do get out there. But like I said, I'll never get choice on it.
We're seeing not so much on the moving water, but we're seeing a fair number of paddle boarders now too. You know, people are trying that out.
Yeah.
So you're seeing that on the lakes or the flat water a little bit more. So
Yeah, but the paddle boats, you get out there, and once you get a current, you can't get back, can you?
the paddle boards.
Oh, paddle board.
Paddle boards,
You
yeah, we're
stand
seeing
up.
more of
The
those.
stand-up
You have a
ones?
paddle
Yeah.
boat with
Yeah,
the
we don't
legs.
see a lot of the paddle boards or the paddle boats anymore because there's so much
They only
work.
go one direction.
Right.
Suppose you could put a drill on the side and just use that.
Yeah, exactly.
So over the 4th, we did rent a canoe,
oh, nice.
and my wife and I did great, and we had our son in there, and we did great. We came back, and then our daughter got in with one of her friends, and a wave runner was coming over, and they all moved to the right side except for me, and I already saw it coming. I'm like, no, you can't. The whole canoe went. It was a nice little swim back to shore.
Right.
Pulling a canoe.
Yeah.
And a lesson was learned that
And
day,
I'm the
right?
only one pulling the canoe. No helpers.
Right. Sounds about right.
So that was a fun canoe story for you.
Yeah, that's how you learn.
That's exactly how you learn. I know I tipped a canoe with my dad when I was young too. So yeah, learn the hard way.
Yeah. So Camp WaNoKi, that was another thing from Fort Dodge Leadership. We went out there,
Right.
and what an awesome park that was. I've recently went back with the kids and go through the trails and down by the river and stuff because it's just nice. And then the building. Have you guys had like a lot of weddings, and do you rent it out for a lot of things?
We do. So the Bob Hewen Shelter, we were tracking how much that was being used for graduation parties and weddings and family reunions and all that sort of thing. And we realized we could have another one of these and rent it this many times because it was so busy. So when we did do that project, we've noticed that it's actually in a couple years it's surpassed the Bob Hewen Shelter. So the rentals are equal or better than what that's been. But yeah, it's been a really popular destination for weddings, for bridal showers, for baby showers, birthday parties, that sort of thing. So it's been a really nice addition to the county.
It is nice.
And it's something south of Fort Dodge, otherwise it was north of Fort Dodge. So it's nice to have something a little bit more central located in the
I think
county.
it was about 2 years ago. I had a client that had just moved to Fort Dodge, and she wanted to have a family reunion. And her house definitely wasn't big enough. She said she had about 25 people. And I told her to call Kennedy or Camp WaNoKi. And it's like during the winter, because it was going to be like a family Christmas thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, like looking out the snow and the lake, that would be the best place to rent.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she did, but that was my idea.
Well,
I was like,
thanks
oh,
for
yeah.
selling it. Keep telling people about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, winter's awesome, especially like if you snowshoe. I mean, the trails that Karen Hansen, our environmental education coordinator out there, she's done a great job of laying out a trail system there, kind of from some of the old camp trails, but then kind of doing her own thing because that used to be a campfire camp.
Okay.
And then it went into private ownership, and then the county was able to purchase it and get it back into public ownership for, a lot of those single track walking, hiking trails, that sort of thing. So, but snowshoeing, if you do that, that's an awesome place in the county to try it out.
Yeah. And then when you have the kids at Camp WaNoKi, you can play the little games and stuff right up there on the trail.
Yeah.
Challenge them and beat them.
That's right. Make them earn it.
They'll get a few more years on you, and then they'll be beating you, right?
Yep. But don't let them win.
That's right. So Bob Hewen Shelters at Kennedy. Also have Veterans Park. What do you do with Veterans Park, or is that maintained by?
So we maintain the park, but that's been a beautiful addition to the park through a partnership with Fort Dodge Noon Sertoma. So that group has done a fantastic job. Terry Mankey, who it's obviously named after, saw that, became the vision, and brought it. And now I don't know how many phases. We're probably 3 or 4 phases down the road.
There's always something new.
Exactly. And
I get in on a couple of the monument things. He's like, Todd, will you help me with this ad hoc committee to build a monument? I'm like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe you should get him working on your Jeep trail.
Oh, there you go.
Next week.
That's true. I'll call him I'll send this to him.
Yeah, no, that place has been an awesome addition to Kennedy Park, and we get people visiting from all over. You drive through there and you see the license plates, and there's people from all over, and we get calls and things in the mail and emails saying what a nice tribute that is. So they've done a fantastic job, and it's been a great addition to Kennedy. And then we've done, in addition to that, Children's Forest, kind of needed a revamping because that was one of the early developed areas of Kennedy Park. So Mina Landis had done a great job of planting trees over there and getting kids involved and labeling things. And if you ever took a class here when you were in grade school, you probably went out there and identified trees that she had done.
Yep.
But it had just gotten overgrown and that sort of thing. So we went in there and we did some clearing, opened it up, and then turned it into a story trail loop. So we get a lot of people with families out there just doing a small little loop trail, reading the story as they go. We did the carvings of the Lorax characters when we had to take down some ash trees. So we thought rather than just taking them down and making firewood, let's create some characters that people
something
can
cool.
look at. So
That's neat.
Yeah. So people spend a lot of time over there now between that and then the Veterans Park. You can just kind of spend a couple of hours wandering around over there.
And Lakeside, which is kind of a city-county partnership. How does that work?
Right. So the county owns that. And then again, back in the 70s, when the city was looking for a place to build a golf course, they worked out a deal with the county. So the county provides the land, and the city Park and Rec Department runs and manages Lakeside.
I heard in that agreement that it's supposed to be revenue share when it's done. It's split the profits 50-50, but there's never any profits.
Well, it kind of depends. Some years we've had some profits from them, but the way that the lease is written, it encourages them to put money back into the course and make sure that we have a quality
Oh, yeah, and it's nice
Municipal golf
course.
Yeah, and we have people that
Yeah,
do
it's
come
always
from outside
nice.
the area that play there. And now it's gotten a lot busier. With
Well, we
Willow
just
Ridge
lost
not
2
being-
golf
right,
courses.
exactly.
Yeah, Deer Creek and Willow Ridge just shut down. They were my favorite because they're little 9 holes, and
Yeah.
I'm a
And not as
terrible
busy.
golfer.
Not as busy. You could get on there a little
Yeah.
bit easier. But yeah, that Lakeside's been really busy this year
And I
for
think
sure.
Golf Country Club has too when I talk to them. So I think it kind of helped both of you guys, and still having 2 amazing courses in town.
Yeah,
Well, and when we camp out there, there's golfers there all the time,
right.
like just nonstop.
Yeah.
And it's a very nice campground.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Glad you
And
enjoy it.
we always do it every year and a couple of times. Last year was so fun. We just put a camper up for two weeks. And then, like, there's so many other Fort Dodge people there. And you
Yeah.
never know who's there. Like, we didn't, like, talk to
Roger and
anybody.
Nancy Leo, but other than that, you never know who's there.
And the kids just knew some other classmates and just had a blast. And then you get to know their parents a little bit more, and then they go to school, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It is a local campground, and we do get a lot of people just coming out. We do get a lot of people, though, that plan to come out, on the same weekend, see a lot of the same names at the same time. And then, the yurts have been a great addition. We not only for people outside the area coming to use those, like girls state softball, those are busy. But people that don't have a camper, that don't want to invest in a camper that we were just talking about, they can come out and they can stay with their friends without having to go purchase the camper and get into that hole.
Or renting a camper is even expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
So we at one of the fundraisers, we bought the yurt for,
Oh, nice.
I don't know, 3 or 4 days. So we're going to go camp there again this year and get my dad that so he can
perfect.
come camping with us.
Yeah, we see that a lot. Yeah.
Fun.
That's a neat idea. So, biggest, latest thing, River's Edge Discovery Center. Can you tell us the whole name? Because it's important you
Sure.
say it.
The new name is the Matt Cosgrove River's Edge Discovery Center. Big surprise to me at the ribbon cutting when the supervisors and conservation board told me that they had been working for the last year on the naming of the facility. So yeah, I was completely surprised. I'm still taken back a bit.
It's gonna be hard to get used to.
Yeah, it's really hard to get used to, especially when you drive up to it and you see your name on it. My wife and I were biking down the other day, and she's like, "Wow, your name is really big on the side of that wall." I was like, "Yeah."
I had nothing to do with that. I had a lot to do with
Just
that, but
28
nothing
years.
to do with that.
Yes, yeah. So it's a huge honor, but yeah, it certainly wasn't needed. I mean, a lot of people, obviously, we talk about 30 years of work. That's a lot of people that have put in time and effort and that sort of thing. So it's been an amazing project, seeing it all come together. It really got started, the wheels started to turn on the project back in 2017 when we updated our Parks Recreation Facilities Master Plan. So when we were looking at things, a lot of our aging infrastructure and all that kind of stuff in our parks had been there for like 50 years. And we were thinking, okay, do we replace this stuff or do we get rid of it? Or what are the new things out there trending that we haven't done yet? So of that, it came out that, there's like 70 nature centers across Iowa.
Oh, wow.
And so, that came up as one of the things, and we were like, hey, we've been talking about that for quite a while. So we put together a subcommittee, and they started working on it, and then they looked at 6 locations actually across the county of where we could put this thing. And at about the same time, the city was doing their Central River District plan. So we had done a lot of joint public meetings, and we talked about our riverfront, and you kept hearing about water trails, and let's develop our river. And I mean, obviously, if you've been to any community along the river, Dubuque, Des Moines, you name it, across the country, and you'll see a riverfront that's developed. So
Right. And here we hit it with trees as best we could.
yes,
You
yeah.
couldn't even see the river unless you're driving over a bridge.
Right. So, we thought this would be a good opportunity. That committee looked at it. The city was an awesome partner and said, hey, we'll give you this 5 acres of land here. We'll also help you with utilities and, some parking and lighting, and, probably knocked $1 million off of the overall project because of that investment that they made. So, we don't hardly ever do a project anymore without the city or the state or some other partner, just because it's so much easier to fund these projects when you pool your funds and go together.
You got to stack that and get
Yeah.
financing from where you can.
So tell us
Exactly.
about it. What is it? What's
we
the
haven't
purpose?
been there yet, so
Oh,
we're going to
yeah,
ask
that's
all
right.
kinds
We
of
haven't been
questions.
What does
there
it
yet.
look like?
So it is a 14,000 square foot building with a large exhibit space, mainly centered on the theme of water, Iowa's water resources. So it talks about, you'll see a big light switch that kids can flip on, turns on the water cycle. So some balls will go up in the air into a cloud, and then they'll work their way across, and then you pull a thing and it comes down. So you get kids interacting with it. So they're not only having fun, but they're learning a little bit about the water cycle and the process. So they get their hands-on activities. But it's everything from the water cycle to glaciers and how the land was formed here, and runoff and how water works across our landscape, and wetlands, and how water's pumped out of the ground and how we use it and how we can dispose of water and all those sorts of things. So it's really trying to educate people on, the importance of Iowa's water quality. We're in a very interesting state that, we've been in 3 years of drought and then went to a really quick flood about 3 weeks after we were in a severe drought.
Yep.
And if you look across the world, we're very fortunate because there's some people that don't have the water resources that, they'd love to have the water resources we have. So we try to impress on people that, we're very fortunate that we don't have in most years, water quantity problem. Right. Our water quality problem is also something that we talk about, and a lot of that's land use and how we can maybe improve that things. Do we take water right off of our gutters and put it into a pipe and send it to the river, and, parking lots, how are they impacted? So, design over the year has now created these wetlands and treatment ponds and all these sorts of things. So we're telling those stories throughout the building, and outside the building, we put in a stormwater wetland. So the water that used to come off of like Central and downtown would just go into a pipe, go into the river and be gone, go to the Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And, so we were fortunate that we were able to get a water quality grant through the state, and we put in this water wetland. So now it comes down, goes into the pipe, but goes into a wetland, and it kind of works its way through the wetland, and then it's either discharged back to the groundwater, or if it gets too high, like it did here not too long ago, then it goes back out through an outlet.
Is that something you're going to see more places do? Because I know we have a retention pond at Fort Frenzy, and there's ways to do that, but is that something that does that same thing where it's more of a wetland and it lets the water go back into the ground versus just going down the Mississippi?
Right. Yep. And that's, if you look at our flooding over the years, obviously we've seen an increase in some rain volumes and that sort of thing, but you've also seen, an increase in pavement and an increase in getting water out of your area as fast as you can. Well, that leads to flooding downstream from you. So the further you get downstream, the more flooding you're probably going to have, just because everybody continues to impact the water that way. So
I'm going to start calling it that instead of a retention pond, because it sounds a lot cooler. I might put a sign up there.
Yeah, it's your stormwater wetland.
It's the Frenzy Stormwater Wetlands.
Yes.
Come to a class on it.
We'll be putting again a lot of outdoor signage and everything too again, so that way there's interaction outside. So River's Edge was just the first phase of that development along the riverfront. So hopefully by the end of next year, 2025, we will have everything kind of done between Soldier Creek and Carl King, which will include the Discovery Center. The outside will have a big new natural playscape that'll go off to the Soldier Creek side. We'll create a bunch of paths and some hard surface trails down to some new fishing jetties, kind of there by Soldier Creek where it dumps in, and then out in front of the building itself. So we'll have handicap accessibility for fishing and some fish habitat improvements out in the river there. And then loop trails, some will be hard surface, some won't. We'll have a little walking path that'll come up along Soldier Creek, or if you want to put your kayak in right there off of First Street Bridge, you can go down a couple steps and throw your kayak in Soldier Creek and take off down the river from there. We'll have the interpretive signage. The city's working on a cool pavilion, 200-person open air pavilion that'll be just downstream from us. So they're calling that their front porch park. So that should be a really cool addition too. So that'll have restrooms, and then you have open seating for like 200 people to rent for, weddings or festivals, music concerts, like they're doing downtown, so all that kind of stuff. So hopefully those improvements will all be put in here over the next, 12 months or so.
Nice.
Just sounds more fun and fun. Yeah. Fun.
Well, and I think I'm so glad you put it close to downtown, because I know now that they've got Crossroads Mall, it's a Corridor Plaza, they're getting that moving, getting people in it. I think the city's next focus needs to be downtown and getting it, more populated, and having the River's Edge there, Corridor Plaza, and, start putting that gateway together to make it cool. And it's all part of that. You mentioned the rivers. We took the dams out how many years ago?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. All the years run together. Yeah, probably at least.
And we put in the jetties.
Feels like yesterday.
Yeah, it does feel like yesterday.
I say that just the other day. It was 10 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago. How was that? How was the? I've heard comments both ways.
Right.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
So from a conservation standpoint, the river is meant to be the river. And so when you put dams in there, that impacts the fish that travel up and down it, the mussels that move up and down it, their natural migration patterns, all that sort of thing. So, they had a place for sure to be able to generate electricity and those, offset the cost of downtown lighting and all that kind of stuff. So there was definitely a need at the time. But I think, you have a couple different sides of it of, whether yeah, that was a good investment because it lowered the electricity rates and you found alternative energy sources and that sort of thing. So you have that component of it. So it's got some good things. The problem is if you look like at the biology of the river, it doesn't want to have dams. It it doesn't function in a natural system. The other challenge we saw that I think we were more concerned about was the safety. We'd created 2 water trails that are designated for people to be on them, and we had 2 dams right in the middle of it. And if you didn't know that,
And
that
tried
could
to go
be
over
a
that
very
dam,
bad
and
deal.
that would be terrible.
And I mean, you look across, Iowa and across the country, the dams, they're called drowning machines for a reason. They create that recirculating current and you can't get out of it. So, that was probably our biggest, from a conservation board standpoint. We did get a lot of pushback from the fishermen, and we understand that too, because we obviously like fishing, and that's an important part of what we do as well. I grew up, my dad took me to the river fishing as a kid, and I've got great fond memories of being down there and catching fish and, just playing, actually, while he fished a lot, and I more played than anything else.
Yep.
But, had some great memories of that. And, you talk to the people that had the boating down there, like the Loomis Park area where they used to boat on that prior to having lakes around here. We didn't have Brushy Creek. We didn't have Badger Lake.
Right.
So a lot of that recreation boat-wise occurred on the river. So you can understand people's connection to the river, and change can be hard.
Yep.
But I think, we're here for such a small snapshot of time that those dams, in the grand scheme of things, have not been weren't there very long in the grand scheme of the Des Moines River.
Oh, yeah. It's a long time.
So, I mean, for the river's sake, it's a good thing. For the safety sake, it's a good thing. And that's why, we're trying to put in some of the fishing jetties are trying to be components of a lot of our projects. Like the city put in those 6 jetties down there at the Little Dam location. We've got a couple more going in. We want to create some better access because we do have a lot of elderly fishermen. And we want to be able to get those people close to places where they can catch fish, because obviously that's important nobody likes to go fishing and not catch anything. So.
Right. And this probably isn't
Just a
your
buzz.
area of expertise, but do you think taking those dams out did anything during that flood? Do you think it helped keep those floodwaters down? A positive, negative impact?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard different things. Again, that's probably not really in my wheelhouse, but I have heard things, like when that was one of the questions I get a lot of, well, aren't you going to flood being down there on the river? And, our answer was, well, we hope not. But, we did have to go through significant engineering, design work, and floodplain modeling as part of that project, had to be permitted by the Corps of Engineers, the DNR. So it's significant. I mean, right now we're just trying to permit this next phase, and I think we've been in permitting for 7 months. So, I mean, our floor is set a foot above the new floodplain that was modeled after the dams came out. And that did change how the river reacts because of those pools. Now, how far that it's debatable, it depends on who you talk to. And I'm sure that experts know, but there was definitely an impact because you had a pool. So from what I've heard is people have said that they think that the flooding was reduced this time because the dams were not there. But again, that's just hearsay and not expert opinion.
We'll have to find an expert opinion on that.
I know we didn't flood, so that was perfect
Yeah.
for me. So I was a little bit nervous, but the permitting and the engineering worked out. And we did probably still have about 6 feet before we got wet. So we also put like 3-foot sidewalls of concrete on the bottom of the building. So we would just have to barricade doorways if we ever got to that point. But that area where we built had been industry since the late 1800s. It's been, industry, big industry, mills and cereal plants and those sorts of things since the late 1800s. And then we went 4 to 5 feet higher than that. We had to bring in that much fill before we even started building the building. So we were aware we were in the floodplain, and we want to do everything we could to mitigate that.
Okay. Can you build high enough, or because normally in a floodplain you have to have flood insurance? Is that something special you have to have with that, or is there a waiver? How do you do that?
It's all part of it. Yeah, you still have to include that as part of the project, but at least you have you've taken yourself up a foot out of the floodplain.
Okay.
So now that you got your 28-year project done, what's your next future plan? What's the next big one?
We're still working away projects. So, I'm very fortunate. Again, the supervisors have been very good to us. An $11 million bond is crazy. Like, we normally don't see that kind of budget. They don't teach that in forestry at Iowa State where I went. We're not normally dealing with that in many zeros. So, I mean, the projects have been amazing getting that one done. And now we're moving into all the work I told you that's going around it. So that project is kind of moving right now behind the scenes, and hopefully we'll go to bid here in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll be managing that one over the next probably 12, 18 months. The Badger Trail project is about half, maybe a little more than that done. So hopefully in August we can wrap that project up. We'll be doing a ribbon cutting on that one. And then Dayton, our Gowrie project will actually get started. So they're doing a trail from northwest side of town to northeast side of town. So that project has been bid and will start right before Labor Day, probably. Be wrapped up by the end of the year. And then Dayton project is getting ready to go to bid here in the next 2-3 weeks, something like that too. So it's been, we're not really looking for additional projects. We're just really trying to get all these out the door. You know, we were fortunate with the supervisor's funding. We were able to bring in about $6 to $7 million of outside funding. Destination Iowa being $4 million. So we've been really lucky. We got a COVID grant on that trail going to Badger that was about $1 million. So having that money was able, allowed us to go out and get additional dollars. So, from there, we're just looking at maintaining what we have.
I can't say over and over again how amazing the trails are. And I think I said this last week is every morning I ride my bike just from my house to the aquatic center and back. Mm-hmm. And one day I hear people say a lot to me that the trails aren't used as much as they should be.
Yeah.
So one day I was just thinking of that and I counted everybody from 6:15 to 6:40 when I got back home. I passed 13 people.
Nice.
So that's like a 25-minute span in the morning on a random Tuesday. Mm-hmm. There's 13 people in that little area. It's like people are using them.
Oh, well, we hear that too, and we put trail counters out there to just be able to show, well, here's the actual numbers of where it's at. And we have them at the OHV Park, so we've got 3 of them out there. We've got them on the trail going to Kennedy. We've got them on the trail going around the lake at Kennedy. During COVID, we saw those numbers go 300%. Wow. And then some. They increased by that number just because people weren't, working from home, so they could go out and do a little biking or walking or running or whatever. So those numbers have stayed high. Like camping, we saw a 300% increase in that, and that number has come back down. But the trail use has not, which is good. So, people went out and bought bikes and e-bikes. And
it sits in the garage.
Right.
Well, I can't say over again, like, go on the trails and go get lost on them. Because like that one day we went to Snell and then we decided to go to Loomis, and in between Snell and Loomis there's like a family of ducks or geese.
All those geese.
Yeah, and we all stopped and just kind of looked at them, and then they went into the woods under the gate, and the kids like wanted to go pet them.
Started hissing at Joyce, and she's like, "Go faster, go!" They're scary.
Yeah, and they make a mess.
They do make a mess.
But you get to see nature.
Well, and
you never know what you're gonna see.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we had one trail she wouldn't go down. Well, we're not going down there. We had to turn around and go the other way because there was a whole pack of, flock of geese on the trail.
Gang of geese.
What happens if you ride through them? Will they move or are they just hiss
It depends. Most of the time they'll move through you. Some of them feel a little brave, so yeah, they'll hiss at you. Sometimes they'll even chase you, so you never know.
What happens if it
makes you ride a little
you?
Faster? It's just gonna nip at you a little bit, scare you more than anything.
I think the deer are getting more and more brave.
The deer are getting more and more brave.
They are, yes.
They're staying closer to the cars. I don't know. They're just.
They just
close.
look
I
at
almost
you
feel like
the
you
could
could pet them.
I know
they're not scared at all.
Tamed one that you could pet.
Really?
Yeah, they just got the food closer and closer, and finally they got to the point you could pet it. And that's just weird, but okay.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing more wildlife encounters just because in town they're pretty much protected. So
there's a couple places you can hunt them, but not too many. And
they're eating my tomatoes.
Yeah,
they work hungry.
We get that call a lot.
Like good green tomatoes that the natural water grew this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? I mean, we went through a lot of different things here.
No, I just want to thank you for, the opportunity to come in and visit today. And again, the partnerships are what make this happen. So I think, the planning has been key to it. So both the city and county have done a fair amount of planning. And I think that's what's led to a lot of the success over the year. But it really is our elected officials investing in this stuff that, that's what's made this happen, and having a true investment in those things. I mean, we hear from local companies of, we need this, we need to add more of this, we need to do these things. And, our elected officials have listened to that and continue to invest in these things. And, I'd say Fort Dodge, I learned early on in my career that, when you have 2 choices, you can either move and change your address, or you can change where you live by getting involved and doing things and taking the leadership program and make things happen. And, you work with people, and we've got a great relationship between the city and the county here, which didn't always exist and doesn't exist in a lot of places. And I think that's made us successful. So I look forward to knocking some more projects off the list, and hopefully come back and visit with you about something new going on here shortly.
Yeah, let's do this again.
Well, we do so much great things about Fort Dodge, and this is one of them. I mean, the play, right? I mean, we play. So.
Right.
Thank you.
That's why
for
we
all
work,
that you
right?
do. Yes.
That's right.
Work hard, play hard.
Awesome. Thank you
So
so
thank
much
you.
for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you. Thank
Bye.
you guys both.
That's a wrap at today's episode of Talk Fort Dodge.
Stay connected with us on social media and join us next time as we continue exploring Fort Dodge's stories through the lens of 2 lifelong Dodgers. I'm Jeremiah Condon.
And I'm Todd McCubbin, and this is Talk Fort Dodge.